Good morning, Desla.
Good morning, Your Honor.
May we know the mandate of the Office of Desla?
Office of DESLA, Your Honor. So, ODESLA is Office of the Deputy Executive Secretary for Legal Affairs. Sorry, I sometimes speak very fast when I'm anxious. Under ODESLA, there's ODESLA proper, and there's the legal department, and the legal office, and the legislative office. Through the legislative office, that is where the Office of the President, through our office, reviews the enrolled bills, and we make the recommendation to the President whether to approve, allow to lapse into law, or to veto. So that's one. And also through the legislative office, we monitor bills pending in Congress. So, and for the legal office, my primary mandate is to handle appeals from agencies. So, appeal cases are, we draft resolutions for appeal cases for approval by the Executive Secretary. ODESLA proper, we handle all different kinds of action documents, Your Honor. So some of those may relate to contracts that need approval by the President. Some of those, we also handle the discipline power of the President, Your Honor, that goes through my office, ODESLA. So that is where we have this investigation proper. So we have adjudicative service and a host of various other documents. We also handle clemency and pardons, Your Honor, so that goes through our office also.
So basically, you have the legislative, the legal, and the Desla proper.
Yes, Your Honor.
That is very enlightening.
Thank you, Your Honor.
How do you think is your experience as Desla? How do you think the same will help and the same will be significant in your intentions about being the next ombudsman?
As Desla, Your Honor, I've had opportunity seeing how the ombudsman works, because sometimes the ombudsman also refers cases initially filed with them to us, and vice versa. In the ODESLA, if a complaint is filed before us that involves criminal charges, then we refer that aspect to the ombudsman. Then also in the ODESLA, because our office handles appeal from agencies, decisions, quasi-judicial agencies, it is a very good exercise to study both sides and resolve the matter and elevate it to the Executive Secretary for his approval. So all those experiences, the ones that I mentioned, I think they will bear upon my service if and when I am appointed as ombudsman.
In brief statement, Desla, how do you draw the line between the jurisdiction of Desla Legal vis-a-vis the jurisdiction of the ombudsman?
DESLA Legal, Your Honor, when it comes to discipline cases, Your Honor, the discipline cases that goes to the Office of the President refer to, with respect to local government officials, Your Honor, the Office of the President has direct jurisdiction when it comes to elected officers of provinces, highly urbanized cities, independent component cities, and component cities, plus cities and municipalities within Metro Manila. Outside of those, the Office of the President has appellate jurisdiction over decisions rendered by the sangguniang bayan, sangguniang panlungsod. So those are cases, discipline cases from the local government code. Now, for discipline cases involving appointive presidential appointees, so that is also under the ODESLA, under the OP, Your Honor. So those are some of the cases that the Ombudsman refers to us. If someone complains about a presidential appointee and they file it with the Ombudsman, sometimes the ombudsman refers it to us. So the discipline jurisdiction of the president is exercised with respect to presidential appointees. Whereas the ombudsman, and we don't have power to investigate criminal cases, Your Honor. The ombudsman has that and more.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that wasn't simple, but it's incapable of being explained very simply, Your Honor.
Thank you. And for my second question, Desla, RA 6770 grants the Ombudsman broad powers of investigation and prosecution. The question is it your opinion that the law is still sufficient for us to be able to combat Graft and Corrupt Practices Act?
Yes, Your Honor. Our laws are sufficient, if I may say so. The problem, I think, is enforcement, which is why we need to come up with a national anti-corruption strategy, and we need to push forward that integrity management program.
You mentioned about the anti-corruption strategy.
Yes,
Can you
Your Honor.
please state in brief what is the distinct feature of this program which will help us address the mandate of Ombudsman?
That's the problem, Your Honor. We have none. So I cannot, it will need to involve the whole of government, Your Honor. We need to come up with one so that we can address these corruption problems.
With your statement that we need the help of all agencies to address corruption, utilizing this proposed anti-corruption strategy, which agency do you think will be the lead agency towards that end?
It should be the Office of the Ombudsman, Your Honor. That's the primary mandate of the Office of the Ombudsman. But the Ombudsman cannot do it alone. So the Ombudsman needs to work with the DOJ, the NBI, the COA, and other relevant agencies, Your Honor.
I understand that in your inclination to pursue the position of the Ombudsman, you've been thinking about this anti-corruption strategy. I wish to go back to my previous question.
Yes, Your Honor.
What distinct feature do you have in mind which is not being practiced still, you think will address really our problem on corruption?
I think, Your Honor, we need to reevaluate our risk assessment, identify the areas of where corruption may creep in. I think we have a problem with that, so we'll pursue that. Identifying risks, so you can address the risk before corruption actually happens.
And in one of the statements made by the former ombudsman, he commented that corruption even exists in the office of the ombudsman.
No?
How do you think are we going to address that, considering that the office is supposed to be the lead agency in fighting this corruption?
Your Honor, that's the difficult question, but of course we will encourage people to speak up if they have corruption issues against any member of the Ombudsman. And they should file the appropriate case, because in the Ombudsman they have an internal affairs body that handles complaints against officers and employees of the Ombudsman. So I will encourage them and encourage them to file it, whether anonymously or in a verified complaint form.
Thank you. For the next question, Desla. The Office of the Ombudsman is vested with contempt powers. That is to address the defiance of its lawful orders and directives. In your assessment, do you think this contempt power of the Ombudsman is effectively implemented to address the defiance to its lawful order and directives?
I seldom hear that it is being used. The latest one, or if I may be honest, the only one I've heard of lately is the contempt issued by against governor of Cebu. So I don't know how extensively the power is used, so I don't know how effective it is, but if it is available, then I guess it can also motivate compliance with orders of the Ombudsman.
If there's already a standing temporary restraining order issued by the court and you are the ombudsman, will you still issue contempt order for the non-compliance of the supposed respondents?
That depends, Your Honor. If the TRO came later, then if there is no TRO yet, I will issue a contempt order. But if there's already a TRO, then I should respect the TRO.
Thank you. Next is about RA 3019. Do you think this is still sufficient law to be able to help the Office of the Ombudsman, again, address the anti-graft and corrupt practices?
Yes, Your Honor. As I mentioned earlier, Your Honor, I think we have enough laws. We have enough substantive laws. Our problem really is enforcement. And other than enforcement, our problem is evidence gathering to be able to prove that the offenses were committed by the public officers, whether alone or in conspiracy with others. So we need training, we need additional skills, because corruption is evolving. It's not really on how they actually do it, but it's on how they hide the effects and the proceeds. So that's the part that's very difficult to find. We need training on that, Your Honor.
I came across a reading material which says that the Ombudsman has the power to subpoena bank records. However, when I check on the requirements, one of those is court order. What is your position about this? Is it really the position of the Ombudsman to push for the power to subpoena bank records? Because I think this is quite contradictory to the elements or requirements incorporated therein.
Yes, Your Honor. The power to inquire into bank records is explicitly provided for in RA 6770. However, the Supreme Court has ruled that that power is subject to limitation. One of which is there must be an actual court order. If it's going to be Sandigan Bayan or Regional Trial Court or Municipal Trial Court. Of course, exempted from that is the impeachment court. That's a different kind of court, but it's still a court. So, Your Honor, it's not that. Probably, it might be a good idea, Your Honor, if changes are made to bank secrecy laws. So it's not the power of the Ombudsman, but maybe a certain leeway can be given through the amendment of the bank secrecy laws.
Thank you. For my last question, ma'am. One of your proposed action plan is the readoption of the resident ombudsman.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you made mention about the integrity officer.
That's him. Yes, Your Honor.
Can you please enlighten us? How is this different from the previously practiced by the past ombudsman?
I think I will build up on the practice of the past ombudsman who adopted and implemented the resident ombudsman. The resident ombudsman, I think that was, I'm not sure if it was Ombudsman Gutierrez or definitely not just the previous ombudsman. We'll look into that, find out the best practices, and find out what the disadvantages were, and improve on it and implement it. So that resident ombudsman will act somewhat like a resident COA. There are resident COAs in all government agencies. So I think we should also have a resident ombudsman, not in all government agencies, Your Honor, but only in those that we can identify as having more risk of corruption issues.
What is significant about the previous implementation is that the resident ombudsman came from the government agency partner of the Ombudsman.
Oh, okay.
So, I wish to solicit your opinion. If given the chance to be the next Ombudsman, would you want the resident Ombudsman to be organic, meaning from Ombudsman itself, or non-organic, meaning coming from the government agency, which is supposed to be monitored and watched over by him?
Thank you for the information, Your Honor. In my 7-year plan, Your Honor, my suggestion and my idea is for the resident ombudsman to come from the ombudsman and answerable only to the ombudsman.
Thank you, Desla.
Thank you, Your
And
Honor.
good luck. I hope you will realize your vision to become the next Ombudsman.
Thank you, Your Honor.